Hello, happy Friday, TGIF. Welcome to This Week in Sports, brought to you by Sports-Kings. I'm Andy Flynn. I'm your host. Today with me, I have Joe. What's going on, man?
Howdy, folks.
That's all you get. Also, we have Michael Prosser, and he's clean-shaven this week, folks. How's it
going, Michael? The playoff beard had to go, but luckily it was done all in good faith. Thank you, God, for Alec Martinez. And, the great shout out to the mayor of L.A. for dropping the F-bomb with a Bud Light in his hand. That was amazing. That was so great to watch on live television, too.
Eric Garcetti.
Michael's facial hair still had a longer reign than the Miami Heat did in the NBA Finals this year.
Suck it, LeBron.
Ooh, easy. So let's jump right into the show because we have some good topics for you guys today. We're going to be talking – I think we're only talking the NBA and the NFL this week. Sorry, baseball. Get more exciting, please.
Somebody do steroids.
Yeah, somebody. I'm challenging all MLB players. Somebody go do steroids right now.
Forget blood stealing. Do what we say.
Actually, our guy David Whitlock from Reading Between the Seams, that's our baseball site, was going to be on the show today, and we were going to talk about Gavin Floyd's elbow injury. I know Michael's a Braves guy, but he's like what, the fifth pitcher in that rotation, anyways, fourth pitcher in that rotation.
Depending on which way you look at it, he could even be the third. But it doesn't matter. He was a waste of cap space anyway. So if he's gone for the season, good riddance.
All right. So let's talk. We're going to go with the NBA first. The biggest news not surrounding Kevin Love lately has been the NBA draft. Obviously, the new consensus number one pick had become Joel Embiid from Kansas. The 7-footer apparently worked out in Cleveland last week, blew everybody away. They said he was making three-pointers. He looked great. Bill Simmons had talked about how his back looked to be fine. Now Embiid goes and gets that stress fracture in the right foot. Question mark looming. He still might go first. I mean, we don't really know, but let's get your thoughts. Michael, let's hear what you have to say about Embiid and how this may impact the NBA draft.
Well, I was really looking forward to this guy going first. I was hoping it was going to be like a bright spot in a dark city of Cleveland. Everybody's still looming over the fact that Johnny Manziel is in Cleveland and he signed that deal and everything. And I was actually getting excited for Joel Embiid. Then Joel Embiid he pulls a stunt like this with a stress fracture. I still think deep down. Well, I guess I want to think deep down that he's still going to go number one. But at the same time, this is the same team that drafted Anthony Bennett number one overall, and that apparently has just like blown back in their faces as this big no. So again, it's still possible. I'd like to see it. But as we were mentioning earlier in the before the show started, Andy, stress fractures are not something to play with in the NBA. This could be either a sign that hey, the guy went hard in the paint one too many times. Maybe he was listening to Waka Flocka Flames, Flockavelli up, and
nobody was listening.
Slam down, dude. I still jam that. I don't care what you say.
So
Great
he's
jamming Monopoly, son.
Flame. He called us
hard in the paint
2 weeks ago on King's Court. So Michael's full of the insults. But before we go to Joe, let me just mention what I was saying to Michael before the show is that I feel like with a stress fracture, it can be one of those cases, and a lot of times it probably is, where it's like your car windshield. You get a rock spits up, you get a tiny little crack, and then as you drive your car over bumps for the next couple of weeks, if you don't get it taken care of right away, it kind of spider webs and becomes this big mess on your windshield. Same thing can be said about a stress fracture. It can be from an isolated incident where you kind of hurt it a little bit, didn't really realize it, may have injured the bone a little bit, and then after, he plays basketball, he's jumping, he's working out, it could have just slowly made that crack into something big, and now he has a stress fracture. On the other hand, if you're an NBA GM, though, you're probably saying, this guy has osteoporosis, weak bones, we're not drafting him. That's got to at least be in the back of your head, because I feel like everybody shares my glass half empty theory, at least in these situations, and especially if you're Cleveland and you just drafted Anthony Bennett.
And
sorry
it's the
for
same
the
with Julius
long-winded
Randle.
rant. Go ahead, Joe. Yeah, we'll get to Julius. He's going to be the second part of this.
Yeah, we'll let Julius go in a second. It's so sad seeing all these NBA big men, they come in and they're already doomed before they get to the league. I think, if anything, the best thing to come out of this is that Bill Simmons might get his wish of seeing Embiid on the Celtics. God knows he's wanted that for so long. Yeah, sorry to put that image in your head there. Yeah,
the only bad image I get is of Bill Simmons bragging about how great Joel Embiid is and how right he was. Because I love Bill, but I hate when he talks about Boston sports because he's so biased.
And you hate when he's right. But I think Embiid going to the Cavs was a bit of a long shot because I think they need a guy that's going to give them interest in the case that Kyrie Irving doesn't go back. I think that's, honestly, they're hip-hopping coaches all over the place now. I think, who is it, David Blatt, some guy from Europe's coming over to coach them now.
From Israel.
So, they need a guy that's going to go in there and cement their roster, for the next 10 years. They need a sure thing at number one.
You're saying they need an exciting player, I think, Joe. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying they need to not screw up again.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is why I'm going to say, if you're Cleveland, I would say go Jabari Parker, honestly, over Wiggins.
See, the thing is
I just think Jabari's a more versatile scorer at this point, and he's a no commodity, and they know they're not going to flop another first-round pick. That's not to say anything against Wiggins.
Listen, man, I'm a more versatile scorer than Andrew Wiggins is at this point. It's that ceiling that we're looking at. I mean, Parker's got it. I've always said that Parker's kind of a cross between a Carmelo Anthony and a Rudy Gay. But I think in terms of before Joel Embiid's foot issues, he was kind of considered the safest pick. And that's why a lot of people had Cleveland going with him. I've always been a little bit afraid because big men scare me, frankly, these days, especially a big guy coming off of a back injury. I mean, we've seen the Greg Odens, and even guys that don't get hurt. Kwame Brown's a good one. I mean, just these big guys tend to bust easier than other players. So
Kwame Brown.
I don't know.
Kwame Brown.
So we have here. I mean, Joe said that he thinks Jabari Parker's the safer pick now. Michael, who do you think would be the safer pick, assuming that Cleveland does not go Joel Embiid?
Well, I have to agree with Joe on this one because, you go with the next best player on the board, and that's Jabari Parker right now. I mean, Kyrie Irving to Jabari Parker, that sounds pretty solid to me. I don't know about you guys. And, you put whoever you've got around him. I'm not saying Cleveland makes the playoffs if they draft Jabari Parker, but they could scare some teams.
Sure. And I think Desmond on King's Court, our boy Desmond Palmer, said the other day that, this was before Embiid was even injured, obviously, but he was talking about how people's minds tend to lead them to the fact that the best complement for a point guard is a big guy, whether it be a power forward or a center. But that seems like that was NBA 10 or 15 years ago or before. It seems like now a point guard, especially like Kyrie, who draws so much attention, their best friend is probably another player who can create for themselves, some sort of a wing guy. Maybe a guy who can knock down open shots or can drive to the basket after the penetration. So Wiggins and Parker kind of, in Desmond's mind, sounded like the more logical pick there. And I don't know if I agree 100% of the way, but he opened my eyes to that, and I see that a little bit. However, I still think Andrew Wiggins is a guy. I just think his athletic ability is so much more than Jabari Parker's. And I feel like at this level, that's a more sought-after commodity. Jabari Parker, though, if he can be anything like Carmelo Anthony, the problem with him is he has sort of a Carmelo game, but he's not the jump shooter that Carmelo is, not even close. And his defense is lacking, as where a guy like Wiggins, even if he can't score the basketball that often because he's not a great shot creator yet and he's not a good shooter, he can still play defense. And a lot of people think that he's already a better defender than a lot of the wings in the NBA. Let's go to Julius Randle, though, because Julius Randle has a similar issue. His foot. Michael, where you at on Julius Randle? What's the deal with this guy?
Well, I've heard, a lot of teams are looking, from, I think it's like 6 on down, are looking at Julius Randle. I know my Lakers worked him out. I think, they were impressed. But at the same time, this is one of those stress fractures that you mentioned, Andy, about maybe the guy's got osteoporosis. This could be the guy that falls out of the top 10. Teams within 6 to 10, Philly's picking at 10 again. Some teams are like, it's not that bad. We can fix this. It's no big deal. He'll be ready by, the start of the season.
Well, yeah, he said he's not having surgery.
Yeah, no, and some teams are saying, no, this is a lot worse than what we had expected. We're not even going to come close to looking at this guy. He's gone. So if anybody falls out of the top 10, This is before Joel Embiid had his stress fracture. If anybody was going to fall out of the top 10, to me, it was going to be Julius Randle. Now they both could potentially fall out of the top 10.
No, Joel Embiid. I don't think Joel Embiid's falling out of the top 10. I can't see a scenario where that happens because I feel like if it were to get to the fact. Sorry to cut you off, Michael, but I feel like
that's okay. No big deal.
I'll forget my point if I don't say it now. I feel like if it gets past the point of where he drops 210, the 76ers are going to look at it like this. Hey, we've already drafted, somebody like Exum or Vonleh or somebody like that. Now, we almost – it's almost like a free pick, it seems like. You know what I mean? It's like –
yeah, it's like a chance to double down.
Yeah, somebody
it's like when
one falls all the way down.
Yeah, you put 50 cents in the soda machine and 2 cans come out. I mean,
I love when that happens.
It's just like an extra bonus at this point. So I think what they'll be like is, well, we have Michael Carter-Williams. Noel's coming back this year. We've drafted an Exum or a Vonleh or even a Julius Randle or an Aaron Gordon or somebody. They've drafted one of those higher guys. Oh, we're just going to grab Embiid because he was still projected number 1 overall, and we're going to keep him and wait till see what happens next season. So then 2015-16 season rolls around, and now they're sporting Joel Embiid, Nerlens Noel, and they have Michael Carter-Williams and like Dante Exum. That's 4 of their starting 5, and they probably still have Thaddeus Young. I mean, that's
pretty solid.
That's a very tough team if these guys pan out the way they're supposed to. So
yeah, that's a real good. That's a tall team. Nobody shorter than 6'6". Imagine that. Holy cow.
That's ridiculous. And yeah,
rename the skyscrapers.
That's the thing. They say a lot of people they're not sure if Dante Exum would play a 1 or a 2. I know teams will automatically want him to play the 1 because that 6'6" athletic point guard is coveted in the NBA. But if you have Michael Carter-Williams, yeah, I mean you're gonna try both of them. You have just a 2-ball handler backcourt. Frank Santos loves that kind of basketball. But as far as Julius Randle goes, yeah, I'm generally concerned. He plays a lot of tough bully ball, and if his bones aren't healthy, if his foot's not ready to go, that's gonna affect his game.
I'm sorry, dude. I couldn't help it. You said 2-ball handler.
He likes 2-ball handler.
I couldn't help it. I couldn't help that.
You've got to control yourself.
My mind's stuck in the gutter 24/7. What's
it's got to be. So let's
bring comedic humor.
Let's move into the next topic here because we've got some NFL to talk about. The first thing we have slated here was Packers' second-year running back Johnathan Franklin. Actually, a guy who was early on in fantasy drafts last year. He was the guy going crazy because nobody really knew what was going to go on with him and Lacey. I know Franklin was actually projected the starter for a while last season towards the beginning of the year. The neck injury, he's reportedly done. Joe, what do you think about this?
Yeah, this is just really sad, to see another running back's career end like this. Franklin, I don't remember exactly how the injury occurred, but yeah, like you said, he was a guy that everybody expected was going to be right there with Eddie Lacy at the start of training camp. And then Lacy comes out and just runs away with the starting job. I think he was a guy that they really needed. The Packers really needed a power back to come in there and establish the running game so that Aaron Rodgers in the passing game could have, kind of that complement. And then, lo and behold, Rodgers goes out, misses half the year with a broken collarbone last year, and the team's really got to ride Lacy. And he took off. And I think Franklin really only had, 1 game to come in there and show off. And he did have pretty good stats, for only playing like 2 or 3 games. He had 19 carries, 107 yards. He was a guy that they thought maybe, he's a change of compliment, but it just goes to show you, no running backs in the NFL are safe these days, and it's really tough. And you just got to wish for the best for this guy who's outside of football. And
so they did have high hopes for him, probably even beyond the Eddie Lacy emergence. I'm sure they still, felt like Franklin was a good enough player to, maybe be their second option or use as trade bait somewhere along the lines. But the injury did happen in Week 12 last season against the Minnesota Vikings, and that is sad. Michael, your thoughts?
Week 12, I'd seen Week 3 against Cincinnati when he was returning a kickoff. But yeah, he did have that 1 game against.
But week 12 is what they're saying, did it? So
all right.
I'm just telling you what I read.
It was
neck injury and a concussion on the opening kickoff.
Yeah. Okay, so I just got the teams mixed up, but yeah, he had that 1 game. It was a 1 game against Cincinnati where Eddie Lacy was out, and I think it was like James Starks had hurt his knee, so he had to come in. and I think it was like 13 carries for 170 yards and a touchdown, and 51 of those came on a long run, and then he blows it with a fumble. So I mean, it was a great game that ended badly. But aside from that, this is a really sad thing to read. Like you guys were saying, Green Bay did have hopes for him as probably being a number 2, working his way into the number 2 role, letting go of James Starks. But now this, and it's a crushing blow because the guy had a great college career. Jim Moore Jr. really has revived that UCLA program back to where it used to be, and I think his agent had said his aspiration now is to be mayor of LA. So let's hope that he's as cool as this other guy. But it really is. It's a sad thing. You hate to see anybody's career end like that, especially one who's as young as a rookie season cut short. I mean, obviously we here at Sports Kings wish Johnathan Franklin nothing but the best. Hopefully this doesn't eventually turn into something serious where it could lead to paralysis. But it's still very sad.
All right, so our next topic, we're sticking with the NFL, and we'll actually be riding the NFL out for the rest of the show, is Adrian Peterson. Now, Peterson was talking recently with the Vikings letting go of key players like Percy Harvin to the Seahawks, and now they let go of Jared Allen. And where'd Jared Allen go? The Vikings or the Bears, right? The Bears.
Chicago.
Yeah, the Bears. So I mean, and that stinks in itself, is losing one of your best defensive players maybe ever to a divisional rival. You can't really do that in the NFL. But besides the point, now Adrian Peterson is kind of talking like he's not expendable. How much the fans would miss him if he were gone, et cetera, et cetera. I think there was him likening himself to LeBron James in a sense there. Why don't you start this one off, Joe? What do you think about Adrian Peterson's comments, his attitude lately towards this whole situation?
Let me read the quotes off. The LeBron James one. Peterson says, "I think the organization would take a heavy hit for real, more so from the fan base. I don't think it would be like a LeBron James situation where they're burning my jersey, this, that, and the other. They might be doing the opposite and not buying some season tickets."
Well, maybe if he left on his own, they'd burn his jersey.
Yeah, that's true. But the fact of the matter is that you have to recognize that this is a business, and teams are going to make guys expendable in order to compensate for their future, and not just let guys run out the door. At the same time, this is Adrian Peterson, easily the best running back of this generation. You just don't know. You just don't know with running backs these days as they get close to that 30 barrier when do they fall off the cliff? It just happens at any time. We've seen Ray Rice this season at 25-26 just fall off the cliff statistically, and the whole incident with beating his wife or maybe not beating his wife, and then Chris Johnson, Maurice Jones-Drew, D'Angelo Williams. It's just the running back position is so weird these days, and Adrian Peterson certainly has to see that his time in Minnesota could be running out, even though they could be a much better team this year with Teddy Bridgewater. But I just running backs these days, it's a flaky business. It really is.
It is. Michael, your thoughts?
Well, by the time Adrian Peterson's contract runs out in 2017, by then he'll be 31 years old. And by then, we don't know if Teddy Bridgewater is going to pan out or not. So, I applaud Adrian Peterson for understanding the business aspect of the game of professional football. But at the same time, I think that the Minnesota organization probably could have done a better job to speed this rebuild along. Yes, you got 3 first-round picks in, I think it was like a year or two ago. One of them did turn out to be Cordero Patterson, who seems to be a bright spot. But again, you have nobody throwing to him. Vikings are moving to a new stadium in 2016. Adrian Peterson might not be there when that new stadium opens. And it's one of those realizations that Minnesota fans have to, maybe look into that. Joe and I have grown up watching the game of hockey. We've watched Martin Brodeur in a New Jersey Devils uniform since we were, knee-high to short frogs.
Yep.
But there is now that aspect.
Wait. Hold on.
I just saw you change your name.
You guys have never heard the expression knee-high to a short frog?
No, I'm laughing at Andy's new name right there. # AP to the Lions 2015.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Let's make it happen.
What a
You're getting
joke.
ahead of me, Andy. You're getting ahead of me. Hang on. Anyways, it is now that we've now hit that stark realization that Martin Brodeur, 95%, it's looking like 95% will not be back in New Jersey, and that's something that Minnesota fans are going to have to possibly get in their head. Long gone are the days of Fran Tarkenton and the Purple People Eaters. Long gone is Randy Moss, Chris Carter. Long gone is John Randall, arguably the best defensive player in Minnesota Vikings history. Gone is, Jared Allen. It's going to come to a day when Adrian Peterson is not going to be there. And Minnesota fans have to realize this, and maybe they have to prepare for this. You obviously don't want to lose him to a divisional rival like a Minnesota, or like a Green Bay, like a Detroit, like a Chicago. You don't know what's going to happen to Matt Forte in a couple years. Maybe they bring in Adrian Peterson. Who knows? It's one of those things where Minnesota is either going to be a good team in 2017. Maybe Teddy Bridgewater, finds his stroke and is, the leader of that franchise from, here on. Or maybe they open up, get into that cold weather, and everything falls apart and AP leaves. Minnesota's fledgling, AP's winning rings somewhere else.
Yeah. See, now here's the thing, though, is that you talk about Peyton Manning leaving Indianapolis is another example of a big time, guy leaving his
right. Yeah, exactly.
The city he's really become.
The city he built.
And then they got Andrew Luck. Look at Martin Brodeur leaving New Jersey. They've already got Corey Schneider. So they're set there. Adrian Peterson leaves Minnesota. Who the hell do you have at running back?
Yeah, Toby Gerhart left, didn't he?
Yeah, Toby. They drafted a guy in the 4th round named Jerick McKinnon, who played quarterback at Georgia Southern. But some people are saying he's got the athletics to, kind of that same Adrian Peterson freakish speed and strength.
Yeah, but
the guy played quarterback at a D2 school. He's not going to come in and
let's not forget that this has tried to happen before when you try to convert quarterbacks to wide receivers. Look, you had
Denard Robinson.
Jones, Denard Robinson, that Jones guy
Matt
from
Jones
Arkansas, Matt Jones, and Armani Edwards, who was just a complete and total waste of anything. Oh God, I hated that guy.
So bottom line with Adrian Peterson is it's unmatched talent. I was saying to you guys before the show that aside from maybe a signal caller, a quarterback like an Aaron Rodgers or a Peyton Manning or a Brady, somebody of that nature, Kelvin Johnson and Adrian Peterson are probably the two most coveted offensive players, probably two most coveted players aside from a quarterback in the National Football League today. They're both men among boys at their positions. And I think it's hard to move Adrian Peterson, but at some point he's got to realize that the average shelf life for a running back is 3 seasons, 4 seasons, and he's already well past that.
He has a torn ACL on his resume too.
Yeah, and guys fall off the cliff.
Still blowing people away.
Guys fall off the cliff all the time. Look at Ray Rice has fallen off a cliff, and then he took it out on his whatever she is, his girlfriend, fiance, wife, whoever that lady is. But anyways, let's move on to another football-related topic. This is also kind of about a guy. This isn't the same thing as Adrian Peterson. This is about a guy who's kind of already fallen off that cliff a little bit. Yes, New York fans, we are talking about Eli Manning, Peyton's little brother, 2-time Super Bowl champion Eli Manning. I'll read you the quote. We're talking about Eli kind of falling off. Eli says, "I think I have many more years ahead of me. I think this year will definitely be a better year. I'm looking forward to it. All I can worry about is coming to work every day, getting better, and make sure I'm doing everything I can to make sure we have a better year, and I think we will." It sounds like, from reading that, Eli said the same thing 4 different ways in 2 sentences. Did he not?
Yep.
I hadn't even read the quote all the way through, but he said, "I think this will definitely be he basically said he thinks this year will be a better year 3 different times, and worded it differently all 3 times. Anyways,
he's been trained to deal with that New York media.
I am not a fan of Eli Manning. I'll just get that out in the open right now. I think he's an average quarterback. I said the same thing about Flacco, and he won a Super Bowl as well. Average quarterbacks. Eli, I've always said, kind of has that intangible. It was nice to watch Eli. He'll get pounded. Stand up, has grass and dirt hanging out of his face mask, and then he throws a strike. But the other, 80, 90% of the time, he makes some questionable throws. I think he's has the ability of like a Brett Favre to come back from a terrible play and make a great play. But, as far as being consistent, I've never thought it was necessarily there. I thought they won 2 titles off of their defense mainly. So that's my piece, I said. And I frankly don't think he has many more good seasons. I think he's had a couple of bad seasons in a row, and I expect him to do the same this year. I don't think the Giants have a ton of talent on the offense. The defense isn't what it once was. Joe, let's hear what you think. Yeah, I mean, you live in New York as well.
Yeah, I live in the polar opposite end of New York, but I can't personally say that I'm a fan of Eli Manning.
But you probably still know 9,000 Giants fans, though.
I know plenty of Giants fans. Like Andy, I don't think Eli is an elite quarterback, even though he has won 2 Super Bowls. I think those games were more about how guys like Michael Strahan, Justin Tuck, Jason Pierre-Paul took care of Tom Brady and made sure he didn't light up the rest of the Giants' defense. But that's an aside. I think Eli Manning is certainly going to have a better year than last year. I mean, last year he just really good. Kevin Gilbride was Eli's offensive coordinator for his entire year. He was with the Giants for 10 years. Ben McAdoo is the new offensive coordinator and wants to bring in more up-tempo West Coast principles. I don't know how great of a fit Eli Manning is for that, honestly. I think he's, like Peyton, he's a very intellectual guy, but I don't think Eli is the guy that can keep, pushing the pace.
He's a chance taker too. Kind of a system.
He's a chance taker. So you keep him going, you get him on a roll. He's going to get careless. He's going to throw interceptions, and it wouldn't surprise me if he has another year with 20 picks. Honestly, I don't think he's very good. And he lost to Hakeem Nicks, who's one of his most trusted targets. But we'll see how Odell Beckham fits in.
And that's another thing. Now we have to see Victor Cruz step in and be that actual main guy.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving parts there, and David Wilson has his own neck injuries. Who knows if that running back's going to be back anytime soon? I never thought Eli Manning was an elite quarterback. You had to pay him because that's the price for a guy that's a franchise quarterback. But
you can't spell elite without Eli.
This is very true.
Oh.
You can't spell it without TE either, and I don't know what. Oh, tight end. He needs a tight end.
While I don't believe that, what I just said, I've heard it so many times that I had to just regurgitate it. Michael, your thoughts on Eli?
Eli saying I have many, many good years left. Bitch, you've got maybe 3-4 years left. You're 33 years old. You've been sacked 252 times in your career. Ouch. You've thrown no less than 10 interceptions in the 9 years that you've started all 16 games. His first year he threw 9 interceptions to 7 touchdowns, but he played in 9 games. No less than 10 interceptions. That's something that's horrible. I think there was one year he had 25 touchdowns and 20 interceptions. I mean, that's unheard of. No elite quarterback.
He's thrown for 20 or more interceptions in 3 different seasons. Last season being the most was 27.
Yeah,
and he only threw 18 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. There are some points in time where I'm looking at Eli Manning going, he's average at best. Yes, I know everybody got wrapped up in the fact that he was Peyton's brother. He was supposed to be the second coming of Peyton Christ or something in New York. And, I have to agree with you 100%, Andy. Those defenses won them those Super Bowls. That and David Tyree.
I will say this, as much as slander as I have to say about Eli Manning, I feel like he was definitely instrumental in both Super Bowls.
Oh, there's no question. Because
but I think it was the road. I think it was the road to the Super Bowls where the defense. Not to say the defense had bad games in the Super Bowls because they were excellent too, but the road to the Super Bowls I think was paved by the defense both.
And I think that first year they went to the Super Bowl, he had 9 touchdowns to 1 interception in the playoffs. I mean, when he gets to the playoffs, he's a good player. He's got that extra mindset that you have to go to get far as you need to, but getting there has been a problem. And no offensive line. Obviously, aside from last season, there hasn't really been one for a while. No consistency at the running back position. You lose Hakeem Nicks. You don't have a tight end. There's so many inconsistencies on this offense. If he doesn't throw, I'm giving him, let's say, an over-under. I'm going over 15 interceptions this year. Maybe even
Oh,
17.
he'll throw over 15 for sure.
But like it's going to be I might even go 22. It's a solid number for Eli Manning right now. 22 interceptions this coming season, and don't be surprised.
In 10 seasons, he's only had less than 15 interceptions thrown 3 times, one of which was 14, so close enough.
14.
One of the other times was his rookie season where he only played in 9 games and he threw 9 interceptions. So he threw one a game.
I think there was like 1 year in 2005 or 6 where he threw 10 interceptions.
It was 2008. He threw 10, 21 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. I mean, that was good. In the following year, it was 27-14, but still, it was only 3 times in 10 years that he's thrown for less than 15, which isn't awful. I mean, I think that's a measuring stick. The 15 interceptions is acceptable.
And the guy still has an overall QB rating of like 84. I think it's like 84.1, which isn't bad. It's not bad, but at the same time,
it's certainly not good.
He's an intangible guy, though. Like to me, in the NFL, there's 3 different kinds of quarterbacks. There's the intangible quarterback, there's the skilled passer, and then there's the guy who has both. And I think you look at guys like Brady, Breeze, Manning, and Rodgers have both. Like they're the only 4 that I really think have both and excel at that. Like they all can pass the ball exceptionally well, and then they all make. I mean, their intangibles might be different. Rodgers is very good at extending the play. He can move around a little bit. You have Manning, who doesn't move around so well, but he's
still cerebral.
He reads everything. He changes the plays, and then you have Brady, who's like can throw the ball well, but Brady makes the most unbelievable plays you've ever seen. And Breeze has a lot of that stuff. Like Breeze can move around. Breeze is 6 foot and can manage to make these miraculous plays.
And also upset he has Jimmy Graham.
And then I think you have guys like, I mean, he did well before Jimmy Graham, but then you have these guys like, we can go.
He did not do monstrous before Jimmy Graham. He was very good before Jimmy Graham.
He was good. Jimmy Graham made him great.
You have guys like you have the guys like Tim Tebow. I mean, was all intangibles, all 100%. Or you have guys you do have guys like Matt Ryan, who's an exceptional passer, but like he seems to lack these intangibles. He makes mistakes like at the worst moments. And the same thing with a guy like a Matt Stafford, even being that I'm a Lions guy. The guy his throws, if you just let him throw the ball without anybody near him, I mean, he'll make every throw strike. The guy has an exceptionally accurate arm. You get him in a game, like his decision making goes nuts. So I just feel like and Ben Roethlisberger actually I think is another one who kind of has both. He can make all the throws.
That's
and
true.
He has those extra intangibles. I just feel like for a guy like Eli Manning, he's lived off his intangibles and playing with a great team around him. He's really never wowed me with his passing ability.
Yeah,
no, I agree.
I would certainly agree. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't have anything left to say about Eli Manning. Either of you guys?
Eli's no Peyton. Peyton can, at least make fun of himself on Saturday Night Live, and Eli can't. So.
Hashtag Eli's no Peyton. Well, I think that does it for us.
Hey, man, my hashtag says it all. Bold prediction for this year.
Oh boy, we're going away. But,
on that note.
Joe's a Buffalo.
Hashtag Sammy Watkins for Rookie of the Year.
That actually, I think that your
hashtag
that
actually
Joe,
is realistic.
I think Joe's hashtag is more unrealistic than mine. And mine's
and
pretty
I don't
unrealistic.
have a hashtag, so I'm living in the now.
Michael hasn't caught up yet. Those Southerners. Jeez. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank everybody for coming to our page in general. You can check out all our work at www.sports-kings.com. I'm Andy. On behalf of myself, Michael, Joe, and everybody at the SK Network, I'd like to say join us next week, and we'll see you then.